You are sitting in a room, minding your own business, when suddenly they walk in. The universally beloved, aggressively nice person. They are smiling so hard their face looks like it might physically crack. They are complimenting everyone's deeply average outfits. They brought a box of artisanal donuts. The entire room instantly falls under their spell. People are swooning, whispering to each other about how sweet and pure this person is. But you're sitting in the corner, feeling an invisible alarm bell ringing so violently in your head that you can barely hear the conversation. While the rest of the room sees a living, breathing saint, you are seeing something entirely different. You do not see a genuinely good person. You see a highly calculated, heavily manicured performance. You see a wolf in sheep's clothing who spent 3 hours perfectly blow-drying the wool. And of course, when you try to gently warn your friends about this person, what happens? You immediately become the villain of the story. They look at you like you just kicked a puppy. They tell you to lighten up. They say, "Why are you always so negative?" They are literally the nicest person ever. They brought donuts, Kevin. They gaslight you into thinking you are just overly cynical, too judgmental, and completely overthinking it. But you are not crazy, and you are definitely not overthinking it. You are simply immune to a psychological glitch called the halo effect. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where society assumes that if someone is polite, agreeable, and socially accommodating, they must fundamentally possess good moral character. The masses are incredibly easy to dupe with this trick. But as an INFJ or an INTJ, your introverted intuition acts like a built-in psychological X-ray machine. It completely bypasses the polite giggles and the baked goods, and it aggressively scans the motive. Here is the controversial, unapologetic truth that society absolutely refuses to accept. Kindness is an authentic virtue. It is rooted in real empathy, moral consistency, and sacrifice. Niceness, on the other hand, is a social strategy. It is a highly effective manipulative tool used to extract resources, bypass personal boundaries, and secure social standing without actually having to do the hard work of being a good person. Today, we are going to validate your lifelong frustration. We are going to break down the exact psychological tells you subconsciously pick up on, why you are the only one who can spot a sociopath disguised as a golden retriever, and why your so-called paranoia is actually a highly evolved intellectual defense mechanism. Let's dive right in. Have you ever received a compliment from a relentlessly nice person that somehow left you feeling like you needed to immediately take a shower? The words coming out of their mouth sounded sweet, but biologically, your skin started crawling, and your brain immediately locked the doors and pulled the blinds down. That deeply uncomfortable feeling is not paranoia. It is your intuition recognizing that you were not just handed a compliment, you were handed a psychological invoice. To the fake, nice person, flattery is not a gift. And it is definitely not an expression of genuine admiration. It is a highly calculated down payment. They are basically running a social Ponzi scheme using cheap verbal praise as a transactional currency to buy your future compliance. While the rest of the world gets a massive dopamine hit and an ego boost from this gratuitous praise, you are instantly suspicious. When they gush over how much they just absolutely love your totally average 5-year-old sweater, regular people say thank you. You immediately check for your wallet. This is where your specific cognitive functions step up to the podium and start doing aggressive, unprompted background checks on the interaction. If you are an INTJ, your extraverted thinking snaps into a purely analytical mode, running a brutal, cold-blooded cost-benefit analysis on their words. You look at them with dead eyes, thinking, why are you telling me I am a visionary genius just because I successfully refilled the office printer? What is the logical utility of this completely unnecessary lie? And what exact resource are you trying to extract from me? If you are an INFJ, your extraverted feeling takes a different route, acting like a highly sensitive emotional lie detector. You do not just hear the compliment, you literally feel the heavy, sticky, invisible strings attached to their sugary words. You can practically sense the covert contract being written in real time, completely unsigned by you, but legally binding in their twisted little mind, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're complimenting your legendary work ethic today, specifically so they can guilt trip you into doing their share of the project tomorrow. They are laying the groundwork for a trap, depositing fake, hollow coins into your emotional bank account so they can demand a massive withdrawal later. So while everyone else thinks this person is just an absolute angel walking among us, you are the only one actively reading the terms and conditions printed on the back of their smile. Let us talk about the absolute most terrifying creature in the modern social landscape, the person with no dark side. You know exactly who I mean. The person whose entire personality looks like it was sponsored by a live, laugh, love sign from Target. They claim they never get angry, they don't have a selfish bone in their body, and if you ask them their biggest weakness, they look you dead in the eye and say, I just care too much. Most people look at this walking embodiment of purity and think, wow, what an incredibly evolved human being. But your introverted intuition looks at this impeccably sanitized PR persona and immediately hits the psychological panic button. And here is exactly why your intuition is right. And to understand this, we have to dive into the work of the legendary psychoanalyst Carl Jung. Jung proposed that every single human being possesses a shadow, an unconscious dark side composed of our repressed desires, our petty anger, our selfishness, and our socially unacceptable impulses. Having a shadow does not make you a bad person. It actually just makes you a complete, integrated, and structurally sound human being. So when an INxJ meets someone who projects a flawlessly nice, utterly pure, blindingly positive persona, you don't feel safe. You feel like you're standing next to an unexploded bomb because you intuitively understand the fundamental laws of psychological physics. If a person is projecting that much blinding artificial light, it means they are violently repressing an enormous amount of darkness. If they have absolutely no conscious access to their anger or their selfishness, those traits didn't just magically disappear into thin air. They are simply operating entirely in the subconscious. They are locked in the basement, doing push-ups, just waiting for the absolute worst time to break out. You know that the people who permanently plaster a sweet, vacant smile over their demons are the exact same people who will let those demons out in the most covert, passive-aggressive ways imaginable. They are the ones who will accidentally on purpose sabotage your project or spread a devastating rumor while claiming they're just so genuinely worried about you. As an INFJ or INTJ, you would infinitely rather deal with an authentic jerk who openly admits they are in a terrible mood than a fake saint who insists everything is just perfectly fine. Because you can trust the devil you see. But the devil hiding behind a tray of freshly baked muffins, that is the one that will completely destroy your life. If you ever want to force the monster to take off its mask, you do not look at how they treat you, or the boss, or the popular crowd. You take them out to lunch, sit back, and watch exactly how they treat the waiter who just accidentally brought them the wrong order. This is what I call the ultimate behavioral acid test, the asymmetry of hierarchical empathy. The brutal, deeply controversial truth that society completely ignores is that fake, nice people are remarkably, almost ruthlessly, efficient with their niceness. They view basic human decency not as a moral obligation, but as a limited resource that must be allocated strictly for maximum return on investment. Because of this, they are fiercely accommodating to anyone above them in the social hierarchy or anyone who can offer them a strategic alliance. But the exact moment they interact with someone who offers them absolutely zero social leverage, a barista, a struggling intern, or a marginalized person, the facade drops. As an INxJ, your introverted intuition acts like a high-speed camera, capturing this microscopic behavioral shift in stunning, terrifying 4K resolution. You watch them pivot from laughing hysterically at the manager's incredibly unfunny joke to snapping cold, dead-eyed instructions at a terrified teenager making their latte. It happens in a fraction of a second, but to your analytical brain, it's like watching a neon sign flash the word sociopath right above their head. While the rest of the group completely misses it, your mind permanently files this person into a mental folder labeled "Do Not Trust Under Any Circumstances." Because your internal framework understands that true empathy is symmetrical, it flows equally in all directions, regardless of a person's status, wealth, or power. When empathy is highly asymmetrical, it is no longer empathy. It is just opportunistic social climbing wearing a very cheap, polite Halloween costume. Once you see this glitch in their matrix, it literally does not matter how incredibly sweet they act towards you for the rest of the year. You have seen behind the curtain, you know exactly how they treat the powerless. And you know it is only a matter of time before they look at you with those exact same dead eyes. Let us talk about the deeply unsettling experience of looking into someone's eyes and realizing that absolutely nobody is home. I'm not talking about someone who is just a little quiet or socially awkward. I'm talking about the chronic people pleaser who suffers from what I call hollow vessel syndrome. To be universally liked by every single person in a room, a human being must perform a very dark magic trick. They have to completely erase their own identity. They have to become a social chameleon, a pathetic, highly agreeable sponge that simply absorbs the personality of whoever happens to be the most dominant person nearby. If the boss loves golf, suddenly they have been a lifelong golf fanatic. If the popular crowd hates a specific coworker, they will nod along and pretend they always hated them too, even if they were just praising them 10 minutes ago. Most people find this hyper-adaptability charming, but to you, the INxJ, it is absolutely repulsive. This is because your cognitive stack is built on incredibly strong, unshakable internal frameworks. If you are an INTJ, your introverted feeling provides you with a fierce internal moral code and a deep, uncompromising sense of authentic self. If you are an INFJ, your introverted thinking gives you a rigorous, logically consistent internal blueprint of what is true and false. So, when your analytical mind scans past the polite, giggly exterior of the fake, nice person, you do not find a soul. You find a terrifying, echoing void. You quickly realize this person has no actual core, no foundational morals, no independent opinions, and absolutely zero real loyalties. To the rest of the world, this total lack of a spine makes them easygoing and flexible. To you, it makes them one of the most unpredictable and highly dangerous entities on the planet. Because a person with no core identity has no anchor to hold them down when the situation gets complicated. The exact second the social wind changes direction, or the moment it becomes strategically beneficial to throw you directly under the bus. They will do it without a moment's hesitation, and they will do it with that exact same vacant, sugary smile on their face. Let's talk about the primary verbal currency of the chronically fake nice person, the completely empty, aggressively enthusiastic promise. Oh my God, we should absolutely get coffee soon. I will totally help you move this weekend. Let me know if you ever need anything. Seriously, anything at all. Most normal people hear these effusive, sugary offers and think, wow, what an incredibly supportive, generous friend I have found. But you do not hear a generous offer. You hear a highly suspicious, poorly structured verbal contract that they have absolutely zero intention of fulfilling. The psychological truth is that fake nice people simply cannot survive on actual deeds because actual deeds require effort, sacrifice, and stepping outside of their own ego. So they survive entirely on future faking. They skillfully mine the immediate social goodwill and dopamine rush of making a grand, generous gesture while permanently dodging the invoice when it actually comes due. But unfortunately for them, they are dealing with an INxJ. As a dominant introverted intuitive, you are a relentless, long-term, future-oriented thinker. You do not live in the fleeting present moment. Your brain naturally lives on a timeline. You are essentially walking around with a subconscious Excel spreadsheet running constantly in the background of your mind, meticulously tracking the delta between what a person says and what they actually do. You strictly judge the gap between their shiny words and their highly evasive actions. And with the fake nice person, that gap is usually the size of the Grand Canyon. You notice that they mysteriously develop a debilitating migraine on the exact Saturday you need help moving your couch. You notice that we should totally hang out soon never actually evolves into a specific time, date, or physical location. Your mind quickly compiles this data and immediately identifies them as a future faker. You realize their words are nothing but a smokescreen. an acoustic illusion designed entirely to make them look like a hero while safely maintaining the lifestyle of a ghost. Eventually, a real problem arises in the group, and you finally attempt to have a mature, authentic conversation about it. And that is exactly when the fake nice person deploys their ultimate, most infuriating psychological defense mechanism, the over-sanitized PR persona. They will look at you, tilt their head, put on their absolute best kindergarten teacher voice, and say things like, "Hey guys, let's just keep the peace," or, my absolute personal favorite, "Let's just focus on good vibes. There's really no need to be so negative." To the rest of the easily manipulated room, they look like the mature, highly enlightened peacemaker, gracefully rising above the drama. But to you, they look like an emotional terrorist who is actively weaponizing politeness. What they are actually doing is a toxic psychological tactic called tone policing. It is a highly manipulative strategy used to completely shut down necessary productive conflict, specifically so they can avoid taking any real accountability. As an INxJ, you absolutely despise superficial harmony. You would infinitely rather sit in a room full of screaming, uncomfortable truth than exist in a perfectly quiet room built on a foundation of pleasant lies. You see their good vibes only mantra for exactly what it is, a cowardly, intellectually lazy refusal to deal with reality. They use this toxic positivity to expertly manipulate the narrative, successfully painting you as the aggressive, dramatic villain simply because you ask them to take basic responsibility for their actions. At this exact moment, your psychological assessment of them is officially complete, and the verdict is brutal. You permanently mark them as an intellectual and emotional lightweight. You realize that trying to build a relationship with this person is like trying to build a house on a foundation of cotton candy. It looks incredibly sweet from the outside, but the exact second the first drop of rain falls, the entire structure is going to spectacularly collapse. So, having subconsciously processed all of this data, the transactional complements, the repressed shadow, the empty promises, and the toxic positivity, what exactly do? You execute what I like to call the INxJ preemptive strike, because your introverted intuition compiles this psychological profile in roughly the time it takes a normal person to blink. You do not stick around to see how the movie ends. You just quietly exit the theater. You pull away. You put up emotional blast doors. You stop replying to their group texts, and you make yourself incredibly, notoriously unavailable. You do all of this months and sometimes years before their painstakingly crafted mask finally slips in front of the rest of the group. And what is your grand reward for this incredible feat of psychological self-defense? Society absolutely turns on you. Your peers pull you aside and basically stage an intervention. They call you cold. They call you arrogant. They say your standards are impossibly high. They look at you like you are a literal Disney villain simply because you refuse to embrace the human golden retriever of the friend group. And the tragic irony of the INxJ experience is that you are forced to just sit there in silence, playing the bad guy. Because you know that trying to explain your 4D psychological chessboard to them is like trying to explain quantum physics to a pigeon. It is a complete and total waste of your breath. So you do what you do best. You wait, because the INxJ always plays the long game. You sit back in your corner, you sip your tea, and you watch the calendar. And eventually, inevitably, it happens. The mask violently shatters. The universally beloved nice person gets caught in a massive, undeniable lie. They ruthlessly betray a close friend for a promotion. They completely nuke the social circle from orbit, leaving everyone crying, confused, and wondering how this absolute tragedy could have possibly happened. And as everybody is scrambling around, trying to pick up the pieces of their suddenly shattered reality, they will eventually look over at you, sitting quietly in the corner, completely out of the blast radius, totally unharmed. And in that moment, they will finally realize that you were not cold, you were not cynical, and you were certainly not arrogant. You were simply 100 steps ahead of them, and you knew exactly who this monster was from the very first hello.